Distractors are known as the backbone to fantastic runs in Danny's Rod. But where's the line between playstyle and required tunes? Where's the line between helping and dependency? Distractors have, albeit unintentionally, went beyond being a playstyle. It's a necessary role for any good runs, and that has caused problems. Some long, some small. In runs without distractors, you'll see other players dying early or at least taking a buttload of damage constantly. While in runs with distractors, the worst is some damage taken from people who aren't careful. I mean, hell, if the distractor is struggling, it's likely due to a hard twisted combo. So once the distractor dies, everyone else will likely follow. This, in a way, shows that runs with distractors are controlled. Too controlled. While runs without distractors may end up being chaotic until all the competent people are left. I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we cover the problems, what is a distractor? And what is the sole cause most of these problems come from? Distractors were once a fan-made playstyle that became official. The playstyle works for any fast enough tunes that are capable of getting a twisted's attention and keeping it on them constantly, removing the danger from the floor as long as his distractor doesn't struggle or die. As you might have caught on from my specific wording, the two important stats for distractors are movement speed and stealth. Usually the best distractors are those with high movement speed and low stealth. The higher the movement speed, the easier it is to loop around an area. The lower the stealth, the less risky it is for twisteds to go to other tunes or for the distractor to lose them. Also, before I get any smart asses in the comments, yes! I know that technically any movement speed can distract, but 1 to 2 star literally requires a bunch of yadas and likely Bassi, which, mind you, are better distractors than whatever 1 to 2 star tune you're using. And 3 star movement speed tunes really depend on the twisted and size of an island. As for stealth, it really depends on the tune you have in your run and how much it matters. In some runs, you might see your tune run straight into a distractor's distracting area, because they don't have to worry about taking damage due to their stealth being higher than the distractors. However, some tunes share the same stealth as the distractor, so in that case, it's better to not get in the way of the distractor. It just depends. Though, lower stealth is preferred, so the issues of the same star stealth tunes happens less. I wasn't sure where to fit this in, but there are very popular tricking combos that aid in movement speed. Speedy Shoes and Thog Plush increase a tune's walk speed and run speed, so it automatically makes them better. Hell, 4-star movement speed tunes are required to have Dog Plush because it allows them to outwalk nearly every twisted in the game. This is a problem because it just increases the dependency problem even further by making more tunes viable distractors. Anyways, I don't think it's necessary to know exactly what I'm referring to when I talk about distractors, but if you want to imagine it, just use any 4 or 5-star movement speed tune, with 3-star stealth or less. Now, some of the general problems, which will be expanded upon later, is reduction of danger and complete dependency on distractors. We'll get there when we get there. I don't want to say too much. Now that you understand what a distractor is, let's get into the real problems, from smallest to largest.
Roll blur.
Distractors will usually have all of the twisteds handled. This ends up making the roles of tunes start to blur for players. Specifically, the roles start to feel simplified. I'm mostly referring to any support tunes that also don't work as distractors, or don't give extraction buffs. These tunes may feel like dead weight to a team because they can't efficiently do one of the only ways to progress in a run, but also can't support anyone on the team efficiently either. Let's take Goob, for instance. Low extraction speed, high movement speed, and low stealth. Sounds like a distractor, huh? Well, his ability is the one that's able to grab another tune and pull them towards him. This is very well a support ability, and likely his intended role. I think he was meant to take tunes away from twisteds and pull the twisteds onto Goob. However, if another person is distracting, then this role is completely useless except for what? Stationary twisteds like Twisted Roger? Hell, I just said he sounds like a distractor because he can be a distractor. He's better off being a backup distractor or even just a main distractor because it's better to permanently remove the threat rather than saving a singular person from a threat. And back to my dead weight claim. Since Goob has low extraction speed, when he isn't distracting, he's not doing much for the team. I mean, Gordy can fit into this as well. Yeah, sure, he's clearly a very good extractor, but he can also work as a distractor, even more so than Goob because Gordy has 1-star stealth and can at least be a great extractor. And his active ability can give an extraction buff, but it's RNG, it's random, you can't choose or anything. You just have to hope you help someone directly with an indirect method. This goes back to my point on Goob. Gordy works better as a backup or the main distractor. But put a pin on that since he does have very low stamina. But I don't want to get into that. So any tune that isn't extracting or distracting is losing value from their role. It gets blurry. Get it? Except healers, they're like the only exclusion. However, yes, it might feel like a non-existent issue for some people. In some, maybe even most cases, it's the fault of the gameplay of a tune rather than the distractor playstyle.
Tension reduction.
I might have implied this in the previous section, but a lot of fear factor goes away when there's a distractor on the team. The danger mechanic in the game is just stripped away completely, and that ends up making the fear of taking damage, being grabbed, or being spotted from far away go away. This can be bad as most players will naturally put their guard down, and the decisions they make can end up feeling less meaningful. Let's take Twisted Finn. His mechanic gives any Toon that finishes a machine slowness 3. This makes players have to be aware of their surroundings. Are they about to complete a machine but a Twisted is nearby? Then it's recommended to leave the machine before finishing it. Otherwise, you might end up taking damage. But let's say a distractor has every Twisted on them. Then the slowness debuff is useless because there's no need to worry about being sneaked upon or not having a quick enough reaction time. So in other words, without distractors, you may keep your guard up and wait near the machine, or quickly go to a nearby hiding spot while you wait for slowness 3 to end. On the other hand, with distractors you can just act like you're walking normally. No decision making or fear. The same applies to any grabber twisteds, like Twisted Goob or Twisted Scraps, especially in floor events. Blackouts make grabbers hard since you can get grabbed from any direction, and you can't see from far due to the darkness. In general, they depend on very quick reaction time, so they naturally add tension. But if the distractor is holding on to them, that tension is bypassed. The Toons that are extracting or wandering around no longer have anything to fear, even in intentionally challenging floors with grabbers or floor events. Though there is still room for human error, while Toons may not suffer, the distractor might, and that might even cost the lives of everyone else. I mentioned grabbers just now, but grabbers can also grab distractors, which means the Twisted needs to stand still to grab them. This might end up making the distractor lose them, or actually take damage. Distracting can be ruined depending on certain combos, or hell, sometimes another Toon might take Twisteds off the distractor unintentionally. Another distractor or Toon will try getting those Twisteds back to the distractor. Sometimes there's dual distracting, so if the main distractor struggles with certain combos, another distractor can help. So human error might not matter if there are other humans to fix that human error. I think I went too far from the original point. What I'm trying to say is tension is basically next to non-existent if a distractor is holding onto every single Twisted, which reduces how much a player is meant to think about their movement. And even if a distractor loses some Twisteds, they can regain them pretty easily, so mistakes won't add any lasting danger.
Difficulty reduction.
If it wasn't obvious from this video, the game is drastically easier when a distractor is in the picture. Players should have to handle multiple Twisteds chasing them, or even try to get out of the way of any that block the path into a certain area. And naturally, they learn positioning and movement. You see a Twisted in an area, and you're around the corner, then you know to either stay where you are, go back, or take the risk and move forward. If you see a Twisted coming towards you while you're extracting a machine, then you can either get spotted or leave the machine early to hide or find another machine. So, when distractors have all the Twisteds on them, none of this can happen. Movement and positioning is reduced to just finding another machine. Have you ever been chased by a large horde of Twisteds? Now the distractor is holding all of them, preventing the intentional chaos that was meant to be there before distractors. Hell, they increased the max Twisted count from 6 to 8. Though while it might not have been purely the distractor's fault, I still think it was part of it. Deciding whether or not you should keep extracting a machine or make sure you're safe first is no longer a decision you need to make. All that responsibility is the distractors. It's all made easier. But the huge decrease in difficulty doesn't disappear without going somewhere else. It all just transfers to one player. While distractors wouldn't have to be extracting or even supporting in some cases, they still have to deal with all the Twisteds. They're the ones who need to navigate around the Twisteds and find good areas to distract around that aren't inconvenient for anyone. This creates dependency, but I'll talk about this more in future sections. Overall, the game becomes significantly easier. That's my point here. Not just because the game wasn't designed this way, but because it bypasses everything the game was designed for.
Unchanged meta.
So what has changed? Nothing. Nothing has changed. Obviously, I still need to talk about the meta. The meta refers to the best or most recommended Toons for long runs. Long runs are where players try to reach a very high floor goal, like 40, 60, even 100. So the recommended Toons are Shelly, Pebble, and Sprout. And it has been like this for quite some time now. Actually, no. It's been like this since the game's release. While it is true that some Toons were added and removed, it's usually the unnecessary ones getting removed, or the added ones just being alternative distractors. Got tired of Pebble? Oh well, there's Louis, whose gimmick is that if you take more damage, you get rewarded with one of the best distractors in the game. Got tired of Louis but want the same stealth level? Well, here you go, Eclipse. Want a different extractor than Shelly? Well, screw you, you have to deal with 2-star stealth extractors or cry. There's basically no agency due to how important stats are to Toons. What's that? What about the niche new distracting methods like solar system kiting? Well, yeah, they exist. Of course, experimenting and finding new strategies will always exist. Hell, before I stopped hosting long runs, I tried a lot of 2-star stealth only runs, excluding Sprout. But at the end of the day, if you want any amount of good progress, you must stick to the meta. Experimenting isn't punished, but it isn't supported either. The most meta-changing method to team comps is that a distractor tends to run train whistle instead of speedy shoes. That's one singular meta change that added instead of removed in a whole year. Also, I want to throw this in. A pro Danny's Wood player that's called May Octiva made a video about how Danny's Wood isn't fun, and literally one of her points is how due to all of the new changes, the Pebble Distractor team comp is required to go beyond or even reach floor 100. So you didn't just hear it from me. Anyways, whoops, I didn't give myself a transition to the next section, so let's just go to it.
Worthless twisted design.
Twisteds can't do jack diddly squat anymore. I mean, what good is a Twisted that keeps following a singular tune for 97% of a floor? Even the Twisteds had to get a more threatening change, like Twisted Squirm and Twisted Blot actually moving around instead of being a permanently stationary threat like Razzle and Dazzle or Roger. I mean, even then, Squirm isn't guaranteed to go to a good spot, Blot's Iker arms aren't guaranteed to go to annoying areas. They aren't even a guaranteed hit. Goob and Scraps too, they aren't guaranteed to actually hit anything. At most, they're a minor inconvenience to the Distractor's pathing. Let's take literally every other Twisted. What about them? Oops, all chasers! A lot of Twisteds don't even have unique designs. They just chase someone until their attention span can't take searching for them. My point is, their mechanics and their gameplay design doesn't matter anymore.
Long-term player damage.
Long-term player damage. This is the real grime of it all. So what is the biggest problem with distracting, or should I say, problems? First of all, skill isn't showing off properly. What may look like a player getting better is actually just them getting hard carried to further floors. Nothing is taught to the player. All positioning is decided by the distractor for themselves. Players aren't individually being taught anything. They just know they must stay out of the way of the distractor and do the next machine. Even then, that might not even be true. A lot of players fail to stay out of the way of the distractor. That's how bad it is. So yes, bad habits start to form. Doing objectively bad decisions like getting in the way or just winging it when it comes to entering areas or trying to get through something. The biggest one is dependency. You know how many players with high floor counts of 50 or higher keep getting damaged repeatedly or die quickly? Too many. Highest floors don't show skill. It just shows how far the distractor managed to carry them. Yeah, that's it. It all leads up to being a lack of improvement. Nothing is learned. Nothing is made better. It's just the system creating incompetence.
Toon of the week.
Hi guys, just a little section here. Toon of the week is out, and well, while this may get its own video, for now we're talking about distracting and how it ruins Toon of the week. One of the many additions or fixes of Toon of the week is Twisted rebalances, maybe even reworks in the future. Either way, Twisteds are expanded upon to fit with the recently finished recode. That's the whole point of Toon of the week. However, if the Twisted improvements stay the way they are, they literally get ruined by distracting. As of right now, only Sprout has had a Toon of the week, and Twisted Sprout now follows Cosmo and looks at posters about himself. However, none of this will be visible if a distractor is holding on to Twisted Sprout. So yes, even distracting affects the development of the game. Isn't that great?
The fix.
So, now that we have established that distracting is very detrimental to the game, is there any way to fix it? Yes, I do think there is. But people are not gonna like it. I feel like when it comes to trying to solve distracting, a lot of players always want what I would call in-the-middle fixes. I don't think this is the way to go, like, at all. Let's say you nerf movement speed. Well, if that would nerf distractors, it doesn't solve anything either. It just creates weaker distractors. It doesn't cover the problem of dependency, the problems of not learning anything, and the meta and casual and pro runs would just keep being distractors. It wouldn't ever need to change. So, what is the cleanest fix? I think it's completely removing distracting. I know you're rushing to the comment section to say how this is a terrible idea, but please keep an open mind when I say this. I think fully removing distractors would require the removal or rework of the movement speed and stealth stats. These stats are just naturally unhealthy for the game, so I don't think anything is really lost here besides, distracting? Something that's even more unhealthy? I think apart from these stat changes, only up to 3 Twisted should be able to aggro onto one Toon. However, scaling should be taken into account. It should be up to 3 Twisteds only if all 8 Twisteds are active. I will not expand on these ideas though, they're very rough concepts. I don't really want to come up with fan-made stat ideas, or think about how Twisted aggro works in solo runs. This is just to solve the distractor problem. Also, in case that hasn't convinced you, then you need to remember that in these types of games, looping is always going to be a thing. I actually think looping staying will be healthier long term for players. Players that didn't learn how to survive on their own can learn the best way to deal with Twisteds independently. They learn positioning, movement, and get a better reaction time. It's like that one scene in The Incredibles. And when everyone's super, no one will be. So that is it for this video. I hope I was able to shed some light on how bad distractors are for Danny's Wood. I think if the developer team cared, they would have already implemented stat changes with the recode. But they clearly don't. But I don't mean to pull the focus away from distracting. I just think this is a step they should have taken to show they care about the balancing of the game. This will get its own video in the future, though. If you think you have these issues of dependency and maybe dying too easily or taking damage too frequently, try some solo runs. I will admit, in the current state of Danny's World, they're as hard as they can be, but if you actually try to teach yourself something, you can learn positioning and movement around twist hits. Anyways, I'll wrap it up for now. If you want more of these videos, make sure to subscribe and give a video a like if you want these longer videos discussing the more serious problems with Danny's World. If you're on mobile, hype the video up to get more eyes on it. And as per usual, thank you.